All right. Hello, everyone. As I promised you earlier, we are now going to talk about some strategies related to translating fiction that we can get from our practice. Here, I will be adapting a PowerPoint made by Doni Jaya, a lecturer in Universitas Indonesia, for Dr. Tiwon, who is also a lecturer in Universitas Indonesia. They are both experts in literature and translation, and especially literary translation. Now, I will also add some examples from what you have done earlier with his Outlaw Valentine there. And now let us see the PowerPoint, and you don't have to see me anymore. All right. So when we talk about literary translation, there are certain things that we need to consider which you don't actually consider existing in general translation. And what is that? First of all, is the notion of implicit and explicit meaning, or denotative and connotative meaning. We need to be aware of all this, and we do not only translate the denotative meaning, or meaning that is literal, that you can see on the surface, but we also need to consider the connotative meaning of the text. We need to carry the connotative meaning into the translation, so that the reader also get to sense what is behind every statement. That's an ideal situation, okay? And in literary translation, implied or connotative meaning needs to be prioritized. And the denotative meaning, or the accurate word by word aspect of the language, needs only be maintained where possible. If it's not possible, then go for the implied meaning or the connotative meaning. Now let us talk about the specific features of literary translation, which you cannot find in general translation. There are three parts here. First of all is the connotation, which I mentioned earlier. We do not consider connotation of the words in general translation as much as we do in literary translation. Here's an example. When there's a word like this: well, governor, you've treated me very awesome. I had given him half a sovereign. Okay, here, governor here, denotatively is somebody who is leading a province, right? But when you hear somebody says, well, governor, does it really mean that the other person is a governor or a leader of a province? No, right? So what is actually true here? It's the fact that the person shows some kind of respect towards the other, or the person he's talking to. That's why they call him governor. So in Indonesian, do we need to translate it as governor? Of course, no. You just need to translate the implied meaning, or the connotation, the respect. So here in Indonesian, the translator uses the word Mr. in order to show some kind of respect towards somebody. And half a sovereign here is like half of a portion of a small amount of money. And in Indonesian, you don't have to actually translate that. Just like the word 9 octave that we found earlier in the translation of his Outlaw Valentine. It doesn't necessarily mean 9 octave. Here, half a sovereign can be well represented with uang rokok, uang jajan, atau uang es for children. So connotation is something you need to consider when it comes to literary translation. And the second one is the allusion. Allusion, the image that a word brings to your mind. Here we have this: I know so well, as if a great hand of fire wrote it on the wall. Literally speaking, it means tangan api yang besar. But do you have that image of hand of fire in Indonesia? In Indonesian? No, what we have is the image of lidah, jilatan api. That's what we use in Indonesian. So the allusion, the image that a word brings is what you need to translate. And the Next part is about metaphor or idiom. You do not actually worry about translating idioms when it comes to general translation. You only need to get what it actually means, then you present it. But in literary translation, well, you need to make some adjustments or adaptations to make the idiom work well in Indonesian. Just like the word here. I'll follow him even if I have to follow him to the jaws of hell. Do we actually say rahang neraka? No, what we know is bibir neraka or lobang neraka or anything near the hell. And that's what we translate. We translate with the Indonesian idiom. And now there are some strategies in literary translation that we can actually also use in general translation as well. And these are only the strategies that that you have used, some of which, and that you can use in the future when you translate again, especially translating fiction. First one is making communicative adjustments. We need to change the structure of the sentence or how we say things in order to make it more communicative. Just like here, an example is fall. It sickens me to think of it. In accurate syntactic translation, you would say, or grammatical translation, you would say, itu membuatku muak untuk memikirkannya, or memikirkan itu membuatku muak. But in Indonesian, you can find more, say, natural way to say it, which is like this one. Cis, mual aku mengingatnya. So you go directly with the word mual. Grammatically speaking, they are not parallel, but communicatively speaking, they work, and they, well, mual aku mengingatnya really represents the English sentence. Or you can say sungguh memualkan mengingat hal itu. You can make some adjustments as long as it sounds natural and communicative, and it still conveys the meaning. Or from our text earlier, we can find this one. Funny, we were kids growing up in the Philly suburbs. I don't remember his clothes being so roomy. In Indonesian, you can say, lucunya saat kami masih sama-sama bocah yang dibesarkan di pinggiran Philadelphia. It's more wordy, but it sounds natural and more communicative. And the word Philadelphia, Philly, you change it into Philadelphia because it's more natural in Indonesian, and people will know it better than when you say Philly. All right, the second one is you make idiomatic adjustments here. In English, we do not have the word mancung, right? Or sorry, not the word mancung. The simile for pointed nose is not bunga melur because they don't have bunga melur over there. So what a translator can do instead is jasmine, which is also slanted and it has some curve. So you can use her nose was prominent like a jasmine bloom. Because the word jasmine is going to be more well understandable for people even in the UK or in the US. Instead of bunga melur, you don't know what bunga melur is over there. I mean, American people don't know what it is. And here is another example, not from Stoker's. This is from His Outlaw Valentine. My lips curve. That is an idiomatic way to say how you smile in English, right? But in Indonesian, you don't have to do it like that. You can just say, bibirku tersungging, or aku langsung tersenyum, and so on. That will make it more idiomatic in the target language. And paraphrasing, you know what paraphrasing is. It's stating something in a different way, but still has the same meaning. Here, the word, the sentence is quite problematic, I guess, because it's not really clear what sense the writer has to say. If we translate it word by word, or if we translate it using the same grammatical structure, the same syntax. So what we can do instead is we try to take apart the sentence and make it sound more, I would say, make it have a bigger impact. Like this one, dia tidak terlalu dekat atau mencoba mendekatiku. It's clear now. You take the sentence apart and find which one you need to prioritize and which one can be taken later, as long as it gives the same meaning. Dia tidak terlalu dekat atau mencoba mendekatiku. That's what the writer seems to mean. And here is a paraphrase on something very complex, actually. Cardinal Wolsey, as the host, sat opposite the king with the queen at the third point of the table, on the table. It's hard to imagine that, and as a translator, if you translate it just the way it is, it will make your translation less comprehensible, in my opinion. So what you can do is Cardinal Wolsey duduk berhadapan dengan raja, still the same, with the queen at the third point on the table. Sedangkan ratu duduk di sebelah kanan Wolsey. Third point on the table. Here is a componential analysis. You find the component of this and translate it into the target language. Like his voice has dropped approximately 9 octaves. Suaranya turun puluhan oktav. You find the component here and try to put it in your own way. The components here is that there is voice, yes, there is drop, and approximately 9 octave. And 9 octave here includes the element of humor. So you know all those parts, and then you create a sentence that that combine those elements, those parts, but with the same meaning. Like this one, suaranya, there is the voice, turun has dropped, puluhan octave to show the hyperbolic way of saying it and how deep it has fallen. Another example, there are dozens of them in the city. The word dozen in English doesn't necessarily mean lusinan or 12. We can use the word banyak or puluhan to express the same meaning. So you need to know the component here if you cannot find an actual, like an exact translation. Next, you find synonyms. Synonyms, you don't actually use the same word, but the synonym of it. Like, as the royal barge went swiftly past. Barge is a floating house, is a boat that uses barrels or things that make them float, make the house float. And in Indonesian, instead of using rumah perahu or pelampung or tongkang, you can simply use perahu because it's pretty much, it represents what the original text wants to say. And transference and cultural equivalence, we talked about it last week as a way to translate something that is not easily translatable. So you either transfer the word from the source language to the target language without giving a translation, just giving, you just italicize it, and then later on you give some explanation, or you either use a cultural equivalent, something from the target language that is quite representative of the original word. I already gave you this last week, like vacuum cleaner. In the US, where people have mattress in the living room, a vacuum cleaner is the only tool to clean the mess. But in Indonesia, we don't actually use vacuum cleaner, but you want to tell the reader that this person is cleaning the room. So just use menyapu lantai, as long as it doesn't affect the meaning or it doesn't affect the story. If later in the story there is something related to vacuum cleaner, then you should not change vacuum cleaner into menyapu. If it is significant to the narrative, to the story. But if it is not, then you can simply ignore it and use a simpler way of translating it into. And finally, this is the example I gave you last week. And finally, you will have to add a note or an additional explanation to make something that might not be clear in the target language clearer. Here, what we used last week was interpolation, when you add something into the text in order to make it clearer. All right, so that's what I can give you, the 7 strategies that you can apply in translating fiction. And hopefully you can get to apply this after this when you do your big quiz, right? And we will keep doing this every week. I mean, you will keep translating something every week, hoping that you get a good practice of the translation strategy commonly used in literary translation. And it will also help you build your confidence as a translator. Okay, guys, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. I'll see you later. Bye.